fine. Let's call this meeting of our regularly scheduled Town Technology Task Force meeting to order. And our first order of business is always the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'll put up my trusty flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Again, one of my favorite parts. All right. So our first agenda item is the shared services study, and the plan was for Melissa and some other folks to do some reaching out to the town contacts, which has not happened yet. So I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about in regard to the shared services at this point.
I think the only thing there, Mike, the update would be to follow up to Bill's communique that came back to us, town, is that Melissa and I will follow up with those towns to make it a little bit more streamlined. But outside of that, we have not started that vet process. So, but we'll move ahead with that probably. I would think next week we should get something going on that.
Awesome.
Before you go to the next item, you still have the minutes from the last meeting.
Thank you, Harold. Did we send them out?
Yes.
They were sent out with our.
All right. Well, I'm going to abstain because embarrassingly, I have not seen them. So if
we can hold it off to next time. I don't care.
No, if enough of us have reviewed them, and if there are no corrections, we can just let them fly as submitted.
They look good.
I'm comfortable with them.
Great. Then they will let them go as submitted. Thank you. And thank you for keeping me on track on my own agenda, which was not up on the screen, embarrassingly. It is now. And actually, our second agenda item was actually the network storage follow-up, not the shared services study. So, Mr. Bizzano.
I think I appreciate you guys participating in that and providing some feedback. I think it was a good process. It led us to a way which is, familiar to us. Can't say vendors' names at this point, but the two that were there at the top, it kind of didn't really matter, but we stayed with the familiar solution versus, jumping into a different avenue. But with your feedback and your comments, and like I sent to the group, is that we're pretty confident that we did the right thing there, and we're ready to move forward with that implementation.
It sounded like you were comfortable with it.
Yeah, more so than on the other vendor there, even though it was a little bit different. But I mean, we're familiar with it. And then with their whole new info site that's coming up and their support, their tiered support for 3 levels, with tier 1 and tier 2 being on that platform, and then 3 being at least in North America, it was good for us. We're not planning to use tier 3, but you never know.
Yeah, the roadmap was encouraging. What you shared was good. I was very excited to see that stuff.
Yeah, you certainly have longevity in view.
Yeah, and like that roadmap had that one cutout, that slide that I had that they said I could share with you. It's like, well, their R&D is out there, and they project even further than that. And it didn't sound to me, one of the concerns was if they were, bouncing the line. I don't think they're gonna. I think they're gonna stick by it, especially with the nimble platform that they have. So I think they're probably in the future, they're gonna probably integrate that nimble platform with all the products.
I especially like the emphasis on AI.
Yeah. And I, that was pretty new to me, that how in depth they got on that. But I think all those vendors now are getting more and more savvy with that, to use that for that level of support that we pay as part of maintenance and support. So, but that's all I have there.
Yeah, that's exciting to hear that that's moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, it already started today. Is we're meeting with the finance department, make sure the paperwork's in order, and then we'll get it out on the docket and probably implement before the end of October if all goes well.
Very cool.
Rick, did you decide on 3 or 5 years? Were you getting a 5-year proposal from him?
So he gave me, it's a good point. Today, when I wanted to have them submit another quotation, a final quotation, just in case I missed something, he asked about the 5-year, and the 5-year came out to being $130, like that, which is, no, we weren't going to go there. Especially with the Board of Finance likes to see those expenditures carried every year. We did carry the 3 with the expectation that fully disclosed to the Board of Finance that, in 2 years out, they're going to get hit with an operation expense.
So Rick, was that final number of around 100K, was that net the trade-in, or is the trade-in taken off of that value?
Yeah, that's with the trade-in.
With the trade-in, okay.
Right. Which is a good thing for us. I don't know what we could have done with that. I don't know. If anybody has a boat, we probably could have used it for an anchor. We could have gave it to somebody, but we weren't going to go anywhere with it.
You just don't like Dell servers. You just don't like Dell's hardware. They're still perfectly good boxes.
That was all HP. They didn't like it at all. They wanted to get rid of that stuff. To me, it doesn't really matter. But
it's all made in the same factory.
Yeah, I think.
Anything else on the network storage? Hearing nothing, we'll move on. The next agenda item we have is our rules of procedure. What was proposed to me was, we don't really have how many members we should have and what our recruiting process would be, and the process for selecting the leadership.
What's our mission statement?
Well, and we definitely worked on that quite a while ago, and I'd like to think that still very much applies.
But I think it should be in there, right?
Agreed. But we've at least already done that part of it.
Yep.
But also a formal plan for reporting back to the Board of Selectmen and stuff like that. Is this something we want to work on as a group all together, or would it be better to sub this out and have some folks that are passionate about it work on it, and then bring it back to the larger group? What's everybody's thoughts?
Well, we certainly have some samples to model after. So,
yeah, I don't think this is a real big project, to be honest. I mean, I think this is, just a little bit of time and a little bit of thought, and we should be able to power through it.
Where is the current mission statement?
It's in the Google Drive.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely it's right in the root of the Google Drive share.
Do we have a time frame to get this in front of folks?
It would be great to have it done. I would think that we could do this in a month, but maybe 2 months to buy us some time to get it done.
So is it like a handbook? Is it just sort of like who we are, what we do?
I don't even think it's anything that in depth, right?
A one-page
It-
handbook?
Yeah, a one pager of, kind of here's how we're going to do things. Here's how we're going to operate. Because it's all been kind of fast and loose to this point, and we obviously we elect our leadership every year, so we already have some of this stuff in place. We just don't have it in writing. So some of it is just going to be us documenting what we already do, and it's an opportunity for us to change it if we want to, right? But
The 3 samples that Melissa sent along all were pretty much similar, and they were what, 2 or 3 pages?
yeah, somewhere in there. Yeah, so 1 to 3 pages, call it.
Kind of curious what Paul's doing right now.
I'm kind of scrolling through it and just seeing if there was anything
It looked like he was taking a picture of a camera.
Oh, no. That's all pretty.
Yeah, it's like I said, I don't think this is terribly difficult. And I like the subcommittee model, just that way we don't drag everybody's time down here. Especially if not everybody's feeling it. So would anybody be interested in helping out with this?
I'll help, but I'll be honest, I don't know that I can really take any kind of a lead. I'm good at writing, but I'm not sure that, I can just make everything up and, but I don't know. I feel like I need a little help.
Yeah, that's fair. And like I said, the good news is we have a roadmap in the form of 3 examples from Melissa.
Yeah, I saw those, but I'm not sure I would know how to fill ours in for all that,
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So I'm obviously more than willing to help out. And if no one else wants to take the lead, I'll take the lead on it.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else want to help out with it, or at least be part of the subcommittee?
I can certainly help out with it. It's just some of the, I don't know if there's any, I'll say legal stuff that has to be put in. Other than that, I don't see it being very difficult. So.
No, like I said, maybe we can just do one quick meeting or something along those lines, or potentially even just do it all digitally, which would be ideal in my geek opinion. All right, cool. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, John.
Well, of the 3 samples, the Economic Development Commission sounds closer as a model than the other 2.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so anybody else want to be involved? All right, so Liz, John and I will, connect after this meeting at some point and before the next meeting, and hopefully we'll have a draft for the group to review at large at our regularly scheduled meeting in October.
Mike, I'll volunteer to review it. I just have some personal stuff going on right now that I need to take care of that's awfully time consuming, and don't feel I could be a good contributor, but reviewing it, I can certainly help out.
Fair enough, Ray.
Was an editor.
I appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Sorry, just bouncing back to our agenda. Any other questions about the rules of procedure? Nothing?
Mike, I question, do we need to get as specific as some of those that said they will follow Robert's Rules of Order and stuff like that?
We definitely will, and we technically do, so.
Yeah. You mean like have a parliamentarian? I didn't read everything, but
Yeah, like I said, we've got a roadmap, so we'll and I'm sure Melissa will want to be involved too and see the draft before it goes in front of the group, so she'll probably want to be involved too. I'm obviously speaking for her or guessing, but I'm pretty sure it's a safe assumption.
So, Mike, if I pick that up, so Ray, you're involved in that subcommittee as well?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
The suggestion may be, as you get a pass through it, send it out to everybody to kind of spot things.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, we'll get it out to the group before the meeting. So hopefully if it's good, we can just roll through it. And if not, we could use that meeting as a potentially a working session to finalize it if we thought we could get it over the finish line at that meeting. Otherwise, we'll push it back to the subcommittee to finalize it. Jason, would you be comfortable with me amending the agenda tonight?
Sure.
All right, cool. And obviously it's in regards to BOE and technology. You're all right with that? And would you be all right with, just giving us a high level summary of what's going on?
Yeah.
All right, so we have to amend our agenda. So can I get a motion to amend our agenda to get an update on BOE technology in the time of COVID?
So moved.
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, we got a lot of, so let's say, I don't know, who moved that? Sorry, so many hands. And so Harold moved it, and who seconded it?
I see Paul.
Paul seconded it. All right, so
I guess I second it. Yep.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we have successfully amended our agenda. Thank you. So, Mr. Casey, you have the floor.
Sure. So the quick overview is that doing the hybrid model and distance learning at the same time logistically is very difficult. The types of issues that we've run into primarily that we've I'd say struggled the hardest against is just device age, and we're working to deal with that. But we're fighting a war on a lot of different fronts from a technology standpoint. On the one hand, doing any kind of video conference comes with its own challenges with user equipment at home and even the Google side of Google Meets. We've had issues where the Google technology itself had failed us. But as I say, the device age has been the biggest challenge, especially at the high school, where the staff were given Chromebooks a year or two ago, and the Chromebooks that they were given were currently some of the oldest in the fleet. They're about 3 years old. They themselves are generally in good condition. They're decent Chromebooks, but we're finding video conferencing specifically is very CPU intensive. And even Google is recommending that Chromebooks be 2 years or newer from a CPU perspective. So that's been our largest challenge there. The CPLs, the CTLs themselves, the only real issue we've had with them up until this point is that the company somewhat abandoned the product line. So we can't get new batteries, we can't get replacement parts. So it's been using our own storage piles of CTL boneyard, if you will, to keep those working, pulling keyboards off of one and screens off another. So we have another order of CTLs coming in. What we've done at the high school in terms of the teaching staff is move them off of the CTLs for their primary video conferencing device and given them webcams and microphones on their desktops. However, there's some challenges there as well, as not all of the desktops have a CPU that's in decent enough shape for video conferencing. So we have an order out to replace those. The good side of the equation is that from an infrastructure standpoint, we've done extremely well. The internet connection that we upgraded from 500 megabit to 3 gig, we've been keeping an eye on that, and we're about at the 50% mark in terms of what level of bandwidth. Additionally, our Wi-Fi has been stable, and our local area network switches, we've been monitoring those. All those levels are in areas where we're comfortable. They're not redlining anywhere. We're not really pushing the system too hard on any of the infrastructure devices. So it's really been a focus on dealing with the end devices and how we're managing that. We have had some virtualization related issues where we had a USB problem that lingered for a few days until we corrected that. It was a software issue. And then we actually had a hardware problem this morning on the virtualization side, which is interesting in the days of COVID now, where so much is going on with streaming video. A server inside of a cluster failed. So in the VMware environment, that's not a big deal. The other servers take over, and the desktops that were being served on that particular server in the cluster get migrated. And most people tend to not notice. There's a 10, 15 second disconnect and maybe some performance lag as the migrations happen, and then everything's back to normal. But as you can imagine, if you're trying to do real-time video, a 15-second drop and some slow performance is very good. So on the upside, that particular piece of hardware was slated to be replaced this year as well. A lot of these kinds of issues we're having are somewhat amusing in that if COVID had happened just 6 months later, so much of the hardware we would have had in place would have not had this issue to begin with. But that's where we are in a nutshell. We're handling device issues in a very constrained shipping environment, so things are taking a lot longer to get in terms of additional Chromebooks, additional webcams. Anything that you could find in a home office seems to take a lot longer to get in these days. But last week was not great. The performance was not where I wanted to see it, but a lot of those issues have been resolved, and we're getting better as we go through.
Sounds like a challenge.
Yeah, I've described it as riding a psychotic bull.
I know we ordered or tried to order a bunch of webcams and microphones for our desktops, and we had a hard time finding one, affordable ones, and two, good ones.
Right.
The brands that you know and trust are completely out of stock everywhere. Or at least they were. We were able to source some, but it took a while and it was a battle.
Yeah.
And I was only buying like 10 or 15 of them. I can't imagine what that was like at scale.
Yeah, it's tricky. Laptops, Chromebooks, and webcams are like the new toilet paper. They're just, the shelves are bare.
Jason, I wanted to ask you, I don't know if anybody else in the group has kids in the schools. I do. I have a middle schooler and a high schooler. And overall, things have been mostly fine. But when there's the freeze up and you hear a kid yelling, I can't, I'm missing school, it's tough. I'm in a lot of Facebook groups with parents talking about distance learning and hybrid and all that. So I may be more in the loop of just hearing the general noise. I'm hearing from some parents, if they put their kids on their home devices, like their computers, their laptops, that they seem to not have connection issues. Would you recommend that any kid who can do that do so?
Yeah, the disappointing thing from Google that are been coming out recently, they put out recommendations in terms of using Meets for educators, and while on sort of one side of the Google mouth, they promote Chromebooks and say how great they are. On the other side, for Google Meets, they basically are saying processing is a big deal for this type of thing. So yeah, I would say at least for the video conferencing aspects of it, where I'm seeing the most success at this point is if there is a second device available, use that as strictly a video conferencing device. And then if the teacher is directing the students to do something else in terms of going on an app, running some kind of web service that's also in use, or even playing a video, using the Chromebook for those classroom tasks has been one way of separating the processing load.
Mhm. So basically, when you're in a live Google Meet with your class, like what we look like now, if you have a different device to do that on, that might be an idea.
Yeah,
I'm conscious of the fact this gets into an equity issue,
sure.
so I don't want to, push that out there. But would that help the overall picture for those who can't get to another device? That would help the overall load, or is that it's not?
No,
It's more
unfortunately, it's really it's the endpoints. It's the
Yeah.
processing for their experience.
Mhm.
The other thing that can be done, we're recommending that students turn off their cameras during these meets. And push that advice down to the teachers as well. So they might start up the classroom, have everybody on camera, kind of do a quick how we all do in waves to each other, and then turn the camera off for the remainder of it to keep their devices performance working as best as it can.
That's interesting. Do you know if the district is going to put out a policy on that? Because I think maybe different teachers have different rules about that.
Yeah, there's, and this is, we're learning as we're going. The original policy was that we wanted students to be visually present when the classroom started. And as we've quickly learned, the processing load from the camera itself tends to be one of the biggest factors in lag and disconnects. So as you can imagine, turning the ship is not something that happens on a dime. We put the message out to principals, they have to get it out to the teachers have to respond to that and make it a part of how they do their classroom. So it's not surprising to me that some are running their classes one way and some are running it the other way. We're getting that message to be more cohesive as we go.
Can you change resolution on a camera to reduce the amount of work that it needs to do?
We're pretty much at the lowest settings on the Chromebooks as it stands. We're not trying the high def options at this point.
Okay.
And generally speaking, I haven't done the math on it yet. I have to do some bandwidth analysis to see the difference between a high def session and a regular session, and then multiply that out to make sure that our internet can handle if we did go to a high def per device. All along, the camera was more of an emotional touching point for the students, more so than you need to visually read something on your screen. For seeing the actual lesson, we're using the software built into the smartboard so a teacher can present, and the way you would see it on your screen is the way it would show through their projector. We're not trying to put a camera up to a screen so they can read it. So in terms of resolution, it's more just seeing that there's a person in the room.
Is there any kind of support that we can offer? And obviously I may have more of a stake in this because I'm, I've got the kids and I'm hearing from my friends whose kids are having issues. So,
it's difficult at this point. We are working through it and we're correcting the problems and smoothing things out as we go. Eventually, I'm confident we're going to be able to replace at least the 8th grade CTL Chromebooks. That's the biggest single class of student that has that as a device. And for the high school, not this Thursday, but Thursday of next week, we're going to replace all of the desktops in the school with newer desktops. I think that's going to go a long way for high school students to be getting rid of these performance issues. But at this point, it's we're muddling through and correcting things as we go.
That sounds like a pretty heavy lift in the high school. You guys doing that over a weekend?
About 90 to 100 devices. And on the upside, we're talking about strictly box swaps. So we're not going in with keyboards and mice and monitors and doing it. It's pull a box, replace a box. The boxes are pre-imaged. They're not unique to the users because it's all virtual desktops. So it's
Right.
really just putting in thin clients.
Mhm.
It's more of an appliance swap than anything else, really. Sounds harder than it is,
Still takes time.
but it will take time, yes.
Well, if there is something we can do to help, Jason, you've got some seasoned geeks here that are more than willing to roll up our sleeves and do what we can to help.
I'll keep that in my back pocket.
Thank you very much. And good luck. I know everything is a challenge right now for sure. Anybody else have any questions or comments for Jason?
I had a general one. I noticed that Hartford had a problem with ransomware about a week ago as they were trying to start up. Scary situation. I was just wondering how we're feeling in terms of Simsbury, and are we seeing any similarities to Hartford?
Yeah, it's interesting who's crawling out of the woodwork to take advantage of the situations that are going on. I think anytime there's kind of a social disruption, there's an element that tries to jump in and make a dollar on it. My social commentary for the evening. So in terms of ransomware, it's of course hard to say, we're 100% secure across such things. I think we do a lot of things eyes wide open, and we've had a ransomware attack a few years back, and that was certainly a learning experience. Even then, I will say we had zero data loss. Our backups completely saved the day. And in fact, in Hartford's case, just a little kind of an amusing aside on Hartford's case, they too restored all of the data save one server. They basically had one issue in Hartford, and that was the transportation database on the transportation server. So they could run the schools perfectly, they just couldn't find any of the kids. But in terms of where we are, we do penetration testing. For something like ransomware, there's really two attack vectors. You either have an open port or it's some kind of social engineering. So from an open port standpoint, the town and the schools share the same pen testing procedure. It's quarterly. We've been looking good on our reports. We've had no serious things for a number of reports now. And in terms of the social engineering aspects of it, we do have an education program through a Safe Schools product that we have, where our staff members go through the video training pieces that describe how to avoid phishing attacks and what looks suspicious and what to look for in terms of headers and email addresses. So we're doing those two things. I would say that's our biggest way of preventing it. On top of, we have two separate antivirus programs. We have two different content filters in place as well. So additionally, between the education and the antivirus and the content filtering, our firewall is also up to date and a next generation firewall. So in addition to all of that prevention, the last line of defense is that we do have good backups that are regularly tested. And I'm confident that if we had any kind of issue like that, we'd be able to restore as we did in the last time that it happened. So that's something that we take very seriously.
New Britain has been flagging emails that come from outside, so that people essentially know right away if it's a external versus internal mail.
Yeah, our newer domain, our Gmail account, we're looking into implementing that on the simsburyschools.net mail as we phase out the other mail address.
Yeah, that's pretty commonplace in the corporate world at this point, is to flag stuff that's coming from the outside, for sure. So Liz, we were just talking about just Bill had asked about the Hartford ransomware attack that happened, and was just curious on Jason's thoughts on that. And
Yeah, I heard about that. Sorry, how ironic that I got disconnected.
I know there's a lot of moving parts to this kind of work. And then I would also point out, in case anyone has heard of this, that distributed denial of service attacks, DDoS attacks, are also up, specifically in Connecticut and specifically on educational institutions. Trinity was one of the most recent that was hit. The CEN, however, has been a great partner in that aspect. They have a DDoS mitigation service that's just part of their general internet providing service. So
that's all.
Yeah, we've had a few notifications of times when they've prevented attacks that we didn't even know about, and they just kind of let us know that they blocked it, and by the way, it happened. So I'm comfortable in that space as well.
Do you know why Connecticut's being targeted?
Need more time to do their homework.
Yeah. I don't. I mean, other than, as I mentioned, whenever there's any kind of social disruption, people kind of sweep in to try and, the bad actors take advantage of these things.
The only reason why I would think that a denial of service attack would be of any use on the schools, because I mean, it's not like you can hold someone hostage to that, right? I mean, we just get a hold of our ISP and say, I found a bad actor and you need to block them. And usually they'll do that.
Right.
Yeah, my dog ate the homework.
Around. Yeah, it's a new version of my dog ate the homework, and it wrecks everybody's day instead.
Yeah, we've had that in the past on a very small scale of a student attacking a teacher specific web page, using a piece of software that generated a bazillion web messages into that specific web page, because that's where the teacher posted the homework. Oh. And they didn't cover their tracks very well, so that's how that went.
He was just trying to stress test the system, that's all.
Yes.
White hat hacker.
Isn't that a federal offense?
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation when we have these meetings. I generally bring in the school resource officer, the parents, and we sit down and we talk about just how far this can go, and that this is an early intervention, because this is a path you don't want to go too far down. So,
unless you're Kevin McNick, and then you make millions of dollars after hacking the DoD. So
he also did some time. That's a tough road to follow.
He did have a federally mandated vacation for a while, so that is true. It is not a road I'd recommend at all.
No.
Does anybody have anything else for Jason? All right. We have come to the end of our agenda. Would someone entertain a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn.
John motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Liz seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for your time.